Welcome to Lead Today with me, Kalyna. Let's talk leadership. Well, hello and welcome back to the show. Today is super exciting for me because we're going to talk about my book, and I've been working on it for around 4 years now. I did the first pre-sale campaign at the end of 2018. I do want to shout out to everybody who supported me in this. You've been so patient with the process, and it means so much to me to know that I have had your support throughout the journey of getting this book across the finish line. It truly has taken my heart and soul, and I want to thank you so much for being the first people to believe in my ability to write and produce such a huge piece of work like this. I mean, it's literally around 300 pages, and it's just been a behemoth of a project for more reason than one, really. I think, yes, the scope of writing your own book and having it be meaningful is already large enough, but there's so much behind the scenes of any project that isn't shown, like finding a publisher and editing what seems like a million times and revising content, planning, episodes like this and producing them and then publishing them. There's so much to be done for any creative pursuit that I think it's really important to just acknowledge that for everyone that creates. And I truly am grateful that I get to do this work and have this opportunity to share what I've learned over the course of my career so far with you. The book that I wrote is called Memorable: Lessons to Leave a Legacy. And I realized in the 4 years that it took me to write it that this is really about building character. It's not about your resume or what job title you want to get. It's about money in the sense that money is what allows you to do the things that you want to do, gives you freedom. It's an energetic exchange. But I wouldn't say this is about how can you make the biggest bang for your buck. This is truly a look into the 22 skills that I have discerned are vital for you to be able to build a legacy that you can look back on and be really proud of it. And I think that we do that by operating with integrity. And so this is sort of what being in integrity means to me, I think. And it's not just my personal experience. In every chapter, we go through some of my stories personally, but we also look at clients of mine. I've coached over 5,000 hours at this point with clients in 54 countries around the world. And although everybody's story is definitely unique, the problems that I see crop up are largely the same. And I've found that when people build these skills, whether they are just starting out their career in senior leadership at a big corporation or heading into retirement and really wanting more fulfillment after the majority of their formal career has ended, I've found that when they're reaching or approaching a roadblock, cultivating some of these skills really can support you to get to the other side. And that's what I'm doing as a coach, really, right? Is we're at a point A, whatever your present moment is, and you want to get to some point B. You want to undergo some sort of transformation in the middle, or maybe you reluctantly go through the transformation. But when you want something different from the life you currently have, there's inevitably transformation that takes place. And so we look at that in the book. How can you go through the transformation to your point B in a way that is conscious? I'm not going to say it's easy. I don't have any quick fixes necessarily, but I believe that you're going through a process of refinement in every good thing and challenging situation that you're put through in your life. That's really served me well. And we certainly explore that concept through the book. So there's definitely a look at being, I really shy away from the word grateful. I think gratitude has a certain connotation in people's minds, but let's say we learn through the different skills how to appreciate the nuances of our journeys, whatever they may be, and then consciously seek to get to the other side of them in order to help others, and others being people, but also different causes that are important to you. So there are three parts of the book. Part one is choice, part two is fulfillment, and part three is impact. So in part one, we're really looking at you making a choice about what's important to you, what's meaningful. It's really all about you exploring who you want to be. Fulfillment takes that on in a slightly different way, looking at finding fulfillment in something greater, even greater than others, but really we talk about God, we talk about fulfillment from a spiritual sense, from a, I don't want to say ethereal. What I mean to say is that fulfillment is really about going beyond just the feelings and the thoughts, and really looking at how you can plug into something greater and find fulfillment at a deeper level. So it's not, one of the chapters is enjoyment. And I think often we think of enjoyment as, let's say, fun. And I think it's more about finding joy in the present moment, in what it is that you're doing, being enjoyed, almost like enjoy with what you're doing. And that brings fulfillment. So we're really looking at a deeper sense of meaning and finding that through the present and what it is that you do. So
this episode would not be possible without Anchor. It's free and the easiest way to make a podcast. They're creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Sort of approach it from a God trusting yourself. So it's still about you, but we're kind of adding a layer on as to what it is that brings you a sense of meaning. And then part three is about impact. So it's very much so focused on how you can relate to your audience, who your audience is in terms of who you serve, how you serve them. This is relevant whether you're self-employed, a founder or entrepreneur in a startup, or you work at a big corporation as an employee or in senior leadership. The point is that you're looking at the contribution you're making to the world and really being mindful about that. So you're discerning your audience, you're figuring out how to empathize with them, understand them, you're building your offering. And again, whether you're working in a company or for yourself, there's something that you're offering to the world. There's one part I talk about, one particular mentor that I've learned from, who talks about it as though you are a business owner no matter what you do, taking that level of ownership. And so that's why actually today I'd love to chat with you about chapter one of the book, which is about responsibility and how the chapters work in the book. You'll get a client example. There's a mentors table, which is individuals that I've worked with directly and have guided me, or those that I know or watch from afar, whether it be their work or clinical practice or the way, a book that they've written, a podcast. So I either know them personally or they've influenced me and the way that I live. So that's another section. And then we really take a look at you. And there's a section called Ask Yourself, where it's all questions essentially guiding you to examine that particular trait. So in chapter one's case, that's responsibility. So we really deep dive into what is responsibility to me? Why is it important to me? And we really get into what types of responsibilities do you want to choose to take on? Where are you feeling that you're doing things out of obligation and aren't really committed? So we sort of truly dive into your situation, because that's what I do as a coach. So if you were to be with me in a coaching session, that's really what you'd be getting from me, is a bunch of questions about your situation and what it is that you want. And then we go on to a 1 degree shift, where you'll get some action step ideas and ways to follow through on the content from the chapter so that you can bring it forward. So once you've answered the questions, examined your thinking and your habits and the way that you do things, you can go ahead and commit to make some changes. A big part of this group is accountability partners. the group, the book is accountability partners. So I definitely encourage you to make groups. That's what I was hoping to say, is to make groups, whether it's just pairs or if you do a book club, any means of supporting you as you go through the journey of the book. If it's something you just want to read and breeze through, that's totally fine. But I wrote it with the intention of really bringing people together, actually creating connection around some of these skills and helping us cultivate them by being along the path with others. Because I don't know about you, but for me, if I have a goal, even like writing this book, I really needed the support of my first editor, my publisher, other editors, designers, marketing individuals, my team members. It's been a huge group effort for sure to get to the point where this book is actually in my hands, which it isn't yet, but will be. And it's continues to be an effort and a group project. So I think with anything that's really meaningful to us, of course, we can embark upon the journey alone. But when we allow ourselves to go on the path with others, I think it's more meaningful, it's enriching, it's fun, it's actually something you can talk about with someone else because you're reading through it. That's why people join book clubs, right? So this is just taking it a step further, I suppose. And not only are you reading it in tandem with your friends or the people close to you or the people that are also trying to improve their legacies and what they're leaving behind and through their work and contribution to the world, but you're reading and you're acting that out in the world by answering the questions, making commitments, telling your accountability partner or partners, your group, like, hey, look, this is how I want to take more responsibility in my life. This is what I want to build. Here's what I'm focusing on as I go through this book. So I hope that you'll consider that if you read the book and you go through it. Maybe not the first time, but it's something that's available to you. And I think a really powerful way to make this book come alive for you in your life is to share it with someone else while you read it. So that was what intent I had with the 1 degree shift. Of course, you can do it on your own, but bringing a friend in might be something. And then there's a takeaway section. So you're just looking at sort of what you've achieved or built so far through examining these questions, taking some actions, reading through the chapter. And I also wrote each chapter to be somewhat cumulative, especially in part 3, but also a bit of a reference guide so that if you're finding that, let's say you want to feel like you're being more responsible or you want to bring a sense of purpose into your life, or there are different words, each chapter is a word, a quality, a trait that I believe is vital to building a meaningful legacy. So if there's one of them that really sticks out to you after you finish reading or when you first pick it up, while I do encourage you to go through chapter by chapter, it's a bit of a reference guide as well. So if you're wanting to feel more creative or courageous or authentic or build trust, those are some of the chapter titles. You can go to that chapter, open it up, read some stories, hear from some people that I've learned from, ask yourself some powerful questions, and then make some changes in your life to build more of that skill in pretty much instantaneously if you answer the questions thoughtfully. So that was really my intention as well. I love books where I can kind of come back to them if I'm wanting to kind of change my thinking or cultivate a certain mindset or bring back a certain insight that I had. I like when books are sort of easily referenced. So that's why I titled the chapters that way, so that they're sort of easy for you to just pick up and say, okay, I want some of this, and flip to that page. So responsibility, why start there? Well, I think that with anything, what I've realized is that when I embark upon something, I need to be very crystal clear that the results and the experience is completely my responsibility. And what I mean is not the outcome, but my thoughts and my behaviors are my choice. And so part 1 is my choice, part 1 is choice. And chapter 1 is responsibility. So it's taking responsibility for your life and taking ownership over the things that are within your control, which, as I said, are your thoughts and your behaviors, or your actions, thoughts and actions. So I ask you to consider that. And the impetus for me to really start taking responsibility for my life, and Max seems to agree. If you're hearing him in the background, he's right below my feet. If you're watching on YouTube, you can't actually see him, but he loves to be right under the desk with me as I work and record here. But so what we're trying to do with responsibility is give you a choice to take responsibility now as you're reading the book. And for me, the impetus, as I was starting to say, was a car accident that I had in early 2019 where I sustained a traumatic brain injury. It changed my life. It forced me to stop and look inward, and I felt completely alone. It was one of the darkest times of my life, both figuratively and literally, because I was in my bed healing and could not be around any sort of really loud environment or stimuli of any kind. So it was definitely isolating physically, emotionally, mentally, one of the most challenging moments of my life. And so I invite you to take responsibility for your life without having the extremely difficult situation happen to you, but more with intentionality of saying, look, I have a choice and I'm going to take ownership and responsibility over my circumstances. And we embark upon the journey with that state of mind to say, hey, I don't have to live my career, my life from a place of solely obligation. I need it to be guided toward what I'm called to do and live with integrity and take responsibility for what I can control, which is my thoughts and my actions. So that's what I invite you to do in chapter 1. And my hope is that you can embody that with a sense of grace. We talk about that a little bit. Some mentors that influenced me in this chapter are Jordan and Tammy Peterson, whose work has significantly influenced me as an individual, the way that I do my work. And I think the core premise there is exactly what I've said, which is take responsibility for your life. Along with those two and a couple of other mentors and stories, we really embark upon supporting you to feel that taking on responsibility for yourself is actually the best choice, even though sometimes it's scary because the alternative is far worse. So that's an interesting chapter with some good questions surrounding that. And I hope that you will continue along with me in both this journey and the written journey. I'll be posting week over week for the next 22 weeks about each chapter. So now you've got kind of the rundown of the book. I won't do that every week. And a little bit about chapter 1 on responsibility. And my hope is that you follow along as we go through the other 21 remaining skills that will help you to build a meaningful legacy for your life. And remembering that that means your contribution in a number of ways. We hold a bunch of different roles. That's not just your work. That's how you show up as a parent, friend, partner, husband, wife, daughter, son. It's how you show up in your world in its entirety. And that's what I love so much about this book and the work that I'm doing, because yes, your work is important. And I've worked with many people on cultivating very conscious and meaningful careers. But what I find with everyone I work with is that once they get very intentional about one part of their lives, it's very difficult to stay unintentional or just meander through the other parts. So we're really approaching your life with intentionality and a great sense of responsibility, because this life is a gift and we're so lucky to be here. And this is truly an adventure that we're all on day over day, even in the seemingly mundane. So I hope that you'll go along that adventure with me. And really, I look forward to exploring these chapters in this forum as well. If you're somebody that doesn't necessarily like reading books, there will be an audiobook as well. So I hope that whether you like to listen, read, have something tangible, which I love a tangible book, but an ebook as well, I'm hoping that you'll have every choice of format in the coming months when the book is out. So thank you for hearing me out. I'm so excited about this because I've put truly so much effort and not even, I mean, time, effort, and also just have thought so deeply about what is important to be said. And I really took this project quite seriously in terms of delivering you the most value that I can. So I hope you'll give it a read, give it a chance. And I appreciate you listening along this series as well. So I'll see you next week. We'll be talking about chapter 2, which is purpose.